This episode is not suitable for young viewers. It contains paranormal and horror themes. Well, welcome to Beyond the Veil. Today we have a very good friend of mine, Tash, who I used to work with. I met her on our first day of working in a mortuary. Wasn't that an experience?
It was.
So Tash and I have both mortuary experience, and she now works as doing mortuary transfer. Anytime there's like a car accident or a homicide, this is your girl who goes and picks the person up.
Yeah.
Aside from that, can you tell us a little bit about your background and what initially sparked your interest working in this field and in the paranormal in general?
Mm-hmm. So I originally, just out of the blue, applied to work at a funeral home, had my interview, got accepted, and then I met Simone. Initially, I didn't think much of it, just occasionally like seeing things, hearing things. Just thought, you know what, I'll give it a go. So I did, and yeah, I got experience in that, which was quite interesting. And then after that, I moved into being a government contractor, which is picking up deceased all the time, and that's been interesting.
So can you, we'll talk about the government contract a bit in a minute, but I want to go back to when we were working in the mortuary, and we've had a lot of questions from our followers on Instagram and Facebook, in some of the groups that I'm in. And the most common question that people have asked is, what's the most unusual thing that you've seen in regards to deceased people?
Unusual as in like?
I guess the most complex situation. I know one thing that really stands out in my mind was trigger warning suicide. A man that died by gunshot wound.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk us through a little bit about your first, I guess, your first thought when you unzipped that body bag and saw him for the first time?
Mm-hmm. So obviously that was our first one of a gunshot wound. As we opened him, his face was very disfigured, his head, everything like that. So we just brought him in, had a look at what we were doing. He was a viewing, so we had to fix him up for that. And as we were beginning to work out what we were going to do, and we were, working everything out, I'm sure Simone remembers this. Whenever you went near the body or went to touch the body, there was just this thing just over you. It didn't feel too nice as well. Yeah, and it was every time you touched him, moved him, done absolutely anything. So me and Simone just thought, okay, we'll just pop him away for now and we'll retry tomorrow. And then when we retried tomorrow, just wasn't there.
Yeah, it was something that I've never experienced in the mortuary.
Yeah, it was just this figure just over your shoulder, just like staring and not giving a very nice feeling.
Like he was hovering, like just leaning over you, above you, watching everything you were doing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was not a nice feeling at all. We've had a fair few experiences in the mortuary, but this guy...
Yeah, that one was bad.
Yeah. What are some other things that happened?
The one time we were preparing an older gentleman, and when we were preparing his body, all of a sudden the dryer flew open and all the towels just all over the floor. And
like he ripped them out and just.
Yeah, me and Simone just looked at each other like, did you see that?
What the fuck?
And then we were just like, okay, let's just pretend nothing happened, pop them all back in the dryer.
And we had the, like in a bathroom, you got to dry your hands with the hand towels. The hand towel dispenser, so many times. So in the mortuary, it was a cement floor with lino on top. There's no way that this could have happened by movement of the floor. But so many times we would walk past just randomly and it would just fly open at us.
Yes.
Nearly hit me in the face one time.
That happened all the time.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it didn't matter which person we were working on. It would just, at random times, even when we weren't working on people, we might have been putting stock away or doing the laundry, washing towels or whatever. And, yeah, you just walk past it. Even when you don't walk past it, you could just be standing there and it would just fly
flies open. Yeah.
Yeah. That was...
And it had a key to lock it as well, which was really weird.
I don't know how that would have happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with the mortuary transfers, have you ever experienced anything there that is more memorable, for lack of a better word?
Just some of the jobs that I've been to have been very full on.
What sort of jobs would you go to?
So as you said, like suicides, homicides, you could just get your old little nana that just dies unexpectedly and the doctor won't write a death certificate. But the one that always sticks with me is this one guy. He was in a motorbike accident against a truck.
Ooh.
And you turn up and you're just picking up all the pieces, like just walking along. Here's an ankle. Okay, pop that in the bag.
You must have a strong stomach.
Yeah.
Seen some things.
Yeah.
And how does that affect you emotionally? Like afterwards, does it take some time to decompress and like, or you just sort of pick yourself up and you're like, right, that's done, move on to the next one?
Yeah, it really depends what it is. Most of them don't really affect you because you just think in your head, okay, it's just my job. I'm here to look after him, and then after that, shut off and move on to the next thing. Because if you let it just repeat on your mind, then you might have some issues. But yeah, you just try your best, go home at the end of the day, just forget about what you've done.
Yeah, right. So, in terms of some paranormal things that have happened with the mortuary transfers, have you experienced anything there?
Not really when collecting. There's been like one or two occasions, except when you go into the hospitals and stuff like that. You'll see figures going past or like shadows just passing by. And you're like, hang on, what was that? You turn around, nothing's there.
Sorry to be jumping back from situation to situation, but it just made me think of our boss at the funeral home used to talk about a man in a brown suit. He was often seen in the reception area sitting on the couch, and then he would just get up and walk away and just vanish. Did you ever see that guy?
I don't know if I specifically saw him, but a couple times in that mortuary I did see things standing, back. So in our mortuary there was the fridge and then the door as you come in. Fridge is on the left, mortuary is just here, and then the stock room is on the right. So there was a couple times when I'd just walked in and seen something walk across that stock room.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
I remember one time I drove past, and so in the reception area at the front of the building, it's just like a floor-to-ceiling glass window and door. And I remember driving past one time out of hours. It's all dark inside, but you can sort of see in from the light from outside. And, yeah, I saw the man in the brown suit sitting at the couch.
I remember you told me about that night. Yeah.
That was something. Because I thought it was a myth. I thought the boss was just pulling our leg. But, yeah, because she's not, like, into any of this paranormal stuff. She's someone that works in a funeral home, she's very professional, I guess you could say. So I just thought, she's just having us on, seeing how tolerant we are to maybe being spooked. But, it was real. I know we've spoken about, like, because, you know, you make general chit chat while you're working together. We've spoken about some of the ghost tours and abandoned sites that we've been to in the past. You sent through some photos of one of the places you visited. You can see up here. What was this lady like? Where were you, and what was happening?
Yeah, so this was at Callan Park, the mental asylum there, the abandoned mental asylum. Me and my sister were just going through just on a Saturday night randomly, and we thought, okay, we'll go through. Didn't really think anything at first, and then we pulled up to a stop, and then we saw some like taped off areas, and we're like, hang on, what is this?
Oh, so we're supposed to go there. Let's go there.
We stopped up, and all of a sudden the tape just started shaking like this, and I was like, hang on, the trees are still, there's no wind, there's no nothing around. What is happening here? Anyways, we stayed there, and we're just like, oh, if anyone's here, make the tape shake. Tape starts shaking, and I was like, okay, all right. So we thought, okay, let's go further in. It was just this building, completely black. I thought, I can feel something here. Something just doesn't feel right. So I thought, okay, I'll take some photos. And then when I was looking, I did find that lady. It looks like she's holding a candle or something, just in her white gown. Yeah.
I've been to Cullen Park previously as well. I was there for a photo shoot, and because it was in a mental asylum, the theme of the photo shoot was mental health. And it was just the most eerie feeling when you walk in. I remember I met the photographer outside, and as you walk in through this doorway, there's a mirror to the right in the hallway, and there was only two of us, but three shadows walked past in the mirror. And then there's like a recreation room, big open space, just like a big hall, and we were all just sitting down, like in between scenes that we were shooting, sitting down on the floor, and you could hear, I don't understand how this works, because it was like a glass ceiling, but not glass, but like frosted something. And you could hear like people playing in there, and what sounded like they were walking on the ceiling. Yeah, that was cool. It's just got you feel a lot of sorrow there.
Yeah, it is very, yeah. And it's cold.
Very.
Most of the time, everything is still. I've also had another experience when I was there. I'm not sure if you've seen it. As you're driving up, there's all the abandoned ones on the side with the bars on the window.
Oh, yeah.
With all the smashed windows.
Yeah.
So one day we were driving up there. We stopped to just have a look at the building and take some photos. Some plastic cups were thrown from the top level down in front of the car.
No.
So we thought, okay, we'll get out, have a look. Nothing was in the window.
Did you happen to get any photos of that?
I'll ask my sister if she has some of that.
Yeah,
but yeah, plastic cups from the very top, just straight down.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
How did your sister feel? Like, was she spooked at all?
Not really. She's very much
a bit like you?
Into it.
Yeah,
she's all into it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So we've got some Q&A from some of our followers that I was hoping to run through with you. Let me just grab my little notepad. So, in terms of, a lot of these questions are about your work experience. In terms of the most challenging thing you've had to deal with in the mortuary, what would you say was the most difficult?
It probably would have been the little kids. The one that always sticks with me is that little baby that we done together.
How many weeks was the baby?
6 months.
Yeah. So there's a charity in Sydney called Angel Gowns, And so we had a box in the mortuary of these beautiful little angel gowns of all different sizes, and they were made from the material of wedding dresses that people had donated. So gorgeous little outfits turned into little gowns for their babies to be buried in. And yeah, we had to dress this little darling in an angel gown. And, you know, as women, and I'm a mother, working with babies is a pretty emotional experience, yeah. And one thing that I can say is that Tash and I we really gave this baby a lot of love. Like, it was hard to do, hey?
Yeah.
And we picked it up, and after we dressed it and just gave it a hug and told it it was loved, and its parents miss it very much. The funeral for that poor child, the family. So I'm hard as a rock when we attend the funerals, because part of our job was as assistant funeral directors. We were there to support the actual funeral directors in setting up and making sure everything goes to plan. Yeah, I'm tough, man. But this one broke me, and I had to walk out halfway through, and I bawled my eyes out.
Yeah.
It's the only funeral I've ever been to.
I think it was the reflection, the photo reflection.
Yeah.
That was rough.
And seeing the parents over the coffin saying their final goodbye, yeah, that was not a dry eye in that whole place. That was hard. Some of the more unusual cases that we worked on, this is where you gore fans are going to get your kicks. The man who suicided by gunshot, so we had to prepare him for a viewing and try and get him looking as normal as possible. So his head was, the bullet went in at the temple, and then there was impact behind. And removing him from the body bag.
Oh, yeah. And trying to not, like, you have to hold everything and try to not let the bones and everything move around. It's so hard.
Describe what happened when... so they're laying with a neck block to support their head while they're on the metal tray that they lay on. You unzip the body bag, and you've got to remove the bag from under them so that you can wash them and dress them and do all the things. And having to lift a broken skull from a neck block and keep it intact for viewing. Tash and I took turns because it was a lot, wasn't it?
Yeah, just every time you touched it, it was just moving, and you could feel the bones crunching. And
I really feel for this guy, like what he must have endured to have made that decision. You know, we talk about this stuff lightheartedly, but we have so much respect for the people that passed and for their families. Please don't think in any way we're disrespecting them by talking about this. It's the purpose of this is for the general public to gain awareness of what goes on in a mortuary, and for those widows out there that want to know all the gory details, someone's got to do it, right? Yeah. We had another guy come in who, remember the man that had edema of the scrotum? He had, I don't know what he died of, but I think it was related in somehow. It must have been. He had the biggest set of nuts I've ever seen. Just full of fluid, like they were massive, and yeah, he must have been in a lot of pain. And seeing something like that and remaining professional in that situation was just like your brain is going a million miles an hour going, what led to this? Like, what happened here? How does this... Yeah, that was an interesting sight, wasn't it? Yeah. Another one, did you see the man that jumped off a bridge and self-harmed.
Yep.
Yeah. Considering the height he fell from, he was in pretty good shape.
Yeah, it's just the legs and a little bit, like he had the black eyes and stuff.
Yeah.
A little bit of his brain coming out of the ear,
Oh, that's
but
right. That was.
he wasn't overly that bad.
Except he self-harmed beforehand, and he had like, they looked like stab wounds, and I noticed they were all symmetrical.
Mm.
So I kind of like, I don't know if he had been suspended. Like it looked like he was suspended from hooks, the way the stab wounds were. So he had like one on either side of his chest, some in his neck, his wrists on the side, down here on his side, a slit either side, and then through his legs. And again, like you mind just like, what? Why? And then at the end of it, he jumped, and yeah, that makes the mind boggle.
It's very young too.
Yeah, he was. Eh? Something that comes up a lot is the fact that people lose control of their bowel and bladder at the moment of death. How do you, I mean, blood's one thing and bodily fluids and stuff, but how do you deal with the smell? Like you go home and that smell is stuck in your nose.
It is.
Because when they're covered in feces and you've got to clean that up, you're agitating the smell and it increases, right? How do you remain composed and not throw your guts up?
Well, I done aged care for 6 years, so I was kind of used to the smell, but you just chuck the exhaust fan on. What was our trick? Tiger balm in the mask.
Tiger balm in your face
that
mask.
Works, yeah, very well. At the end of the shift, just the Vicks inhaler up your nose.
Yeah.
You are sweet.
Yeah. So when you're dealing with the family of deceased people, have there been any family members or things that happen at home or where you could collect the person from that's stood out to you?
There's this one that was when I was doing mortuary transfers, and the wife was there. It was the husband that passed away, and she had dementia, the wife.
Oh.
She didn't understand what was going on. So we were trying to explain to her, but she just did not understand at all. So she obviously wouldn't let us take her husband. She still believed he was alive.
Oh, no.
So we had to actually leave until she was settled, which actually was 6 hours later. She finally realised what had happened.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah.
Poor lady. Someone from Instagram wants to know, did you always want to be working in this field, or did you kind of fall into it by accident? Because, excuse me, it's not really a career path that they talk about at school, do they?
Yeah. So I was doing nursing, and then I kind of just saw it pop up on Seek, and I was just like, you know what, we'll give it a go. And then I just applied out of the blue, really, and then had my interview, got accepted, and I was like, oh, well, here we are. Gave it a go, and it was actually very interesting. So
it's one of the
it was a complete accident that I ended up in that job.
Yeah. Someone has asked, why do morticians sew people's mouths closed?
I think that's mostly for viewing purposes. If you don't want your mouth sewn, you can request that. We've had one before, the natural burial, where they didn't want anything done for their loved one except for just basically to be dressed in a shroud, and that's just what you do.
And something not many people know about is the eye caps. What goes on there?
So when you pass away, your eyes naturally just sink because no blood flow, no, not being hydrated, things like that. So you have to give the natural look back to the face. So basically it's a little cap with some spikes on it, plastic spikes.
You're glad you're dead at this point.
And you just open the eye, place the cap in, and then pull the eyelid back over the cap, and then it just sticks to it. But if you're a bit older or dehydrated, your eyes don't shut like they used to. So you would just pop some cream on or something like that, give it a couple hours until the skin relaxed, and then you would be able to pop the eye caps in. But
usually,
yes, that was one of the challenges.
Sometimes after the eye cap goes in, because the muscle is still relaxing, the eyelids kind of separate, and you can see like a thin line of plastic between the two eyelids. And it was the bane of my existence, having to, especially right before a viewing, having to go back in there, grab an aneurysm hook, which is the thing that they stick up your nose to pull your brains out, but we didn't do that. But you use this aneurysm hook to get up under the eyelid and pull it back down. And, oh, man, that killed me. I was
especially in the corner.
That corner.
Oh, it's so hard to seal that.
Another thing that this is not something that many people think about, that took me by surprise, was that you have to wear a nappy when you're buried or cremated. Why is that?
It's more for like the body fluids and stuff that come out, just like, biohazard issues and stuff, because there is a myth that you plug the holes. You do not plug the holes.
You do not stick a butt plug in a dead person's ass.
No, you just pop the nappy on and then that's it.
And what happens if someone has a pacemaker and they're being cremated?
It has to be removed. So you grab your scalpel, you do an incision. You'll pop the pacemaker out through that incision and just cut the wires, and then you just have to suture back up. But if it's a defib, on the other hand, you have to get the magnets to deactivate it and then just hope it's deactivated.
And what happens if you don't remove the pacemaker before they cremate it?
It would explode in the crematorium.
And you make fireworks. Beautiful, beautiful fireworks. We have a man that works in a crematorium coming on to a later episode. Stay tuned. We'll put teasers up before he comes on. He's got some very interesting things to talk about and some interesting experiences that have happened to him in the crematorium. What additional preparation goes into when someone has a viewing or an open casket? Are there any extra measures that you have to take place that you wouldn't normally for a closed burial or closed viewing?
Yeah, so I suppose with a closed casket, preparation's pretty much the same, because at any time that family can just say, oh, okay, we're at the service now, we do want to see mum one last time. So I believe from my perspective, I would prepare everyone the exact same as if they were having a viewing, just in case that family last minute say, okay, we want to have one last goodbye with mum. But yeah.
And last question, what is skin slip?
So this happens majority with older people. Their skin's a lot more frail. They get, like the bruising spots and things like that. So skin slip happens mostly with them when you're dressing them and things like that. When you're dressing them, if anything is a little bit too tight or their skin's a bit too frail, the skin literally just slips off.
It's like imagine if you put a wet tissue on your arm, like soaking wet, and then pulled that tissue down on either side, and it's the ripping open.
Yeah. So what Simone and I used to do is just put like a layer of cling wrap over the skin first, then dress them to ensure that they didn't get any skin slippage.
It was awful seeing a person go through that, through the decomp process.
Yeah. And it just does not stop leaking as well. You would think nothing comes out because, you know, no blood flow, no nothing. But as soon as that skin tears, it does not stop leaking.
Yeah. Constantly.
Yep.
And it's horrible when you finish preparing this person, they're all lovely and ready for their final big day, and then family asks for a viewing and their beautiful white shirt that they were wearing is now soaked in body fluid the colour of wee. And you try and talk the family out of this viewing because they're not in the best state, and they insist, and then they're horrified, and that's their last moment, their last memory of that person. So if you're saying goodbye to a family member and your funeral director advises you against a viewing, please take their advice. It's for a very good reason. It's a horrible thing to see your loved one in that state. They just want you to have happy memories because that stays with you forever.
Yeah.
I did have a question and I forgot. Oh yeah. We saw a lot of this coming in from people that die in aged care homes.
Mm-hmm.
Why do they put a towel under their chin when they die?
Yeah, so that is to attempt to keep their mouth shut and closed, because when you die, rigor mortis sets in. So then if their mouth is open, it is very, very hard to try and close the jaw. So they just shove the towel there and prop it closed. So then when rigor mortis sets in, the mouth is already shut.
I think that's pretty much all the questions that I had for you, Tash. Do you have anything else that you want to add before we go?
I just have one more memory from our mortuary experience.
Oh, yeah.
We did have this one guy who had Down syndrome. Simone and I were just playing some light music in the background while we were preparing him for his viewing. And all of a sudden the radio turns down. So I said to Simone, "Oh, what was that?" All right, we'll just turn it up a little bit again. Same thing happened. And we'd done that maybe 3 or 4 times. Same thing kept happening. Radio completely off. Not even quietly too. It was just completely off. So we just thought, okay, he's obviously very sensitive to noise and things like that. So we'll just shut it off, respect his decision of having no music. And then we just carried on preparing him as we would.
That reminds me of a lady who I was preparing who I was playing some music on Spotify. And you know that song, Watermelon Sugar? That came on and she turned the volume right up. And I was like, oh. So I just left it. And then the song finished and it played again. And it wasn't on repeat or anything like that. Because I went and checked and I was like, oh, I've had enough of that. So I turned it off and went to the next song and she put that song back on. And so I was like, oh, that's weird. So I I went out of that playlist, played a completely different style of music, and somehow she went back into that playlist, chose that song and played it again. So I turned the volume down. She turned it back up. I went and got one of our other colleagues. I said, look at this. Turned it off. It came back on. Turned it down. It went back up. And she was insistent. She must have loved that song when she was alive because she just had to keep listening to that song. It was incredible.
Yeah, there is some very interesting things that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, that's all we've got time for today. Thank you very much, Tash, for coming on the show.
Okay.
And bearing with me while we tackle those awkward topics.
That's fine.
If you want to hear more like this, please make sure you like, follow, subscribe, all the things, share it with your friends, give us all the love, send us $1 million. We'll keep making more episodes just like this one. Until next time, guys, stay spooky.